Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is a profile on Coach EMartin. And we've entitled this a profile on EMartin and the athletic enterprise, Coach. And I want you to know that what we're concerned about really is to get some information about you and the athletic enterprise from the point of view of having been involved in both collegiate athletics as well as professional athletics and whatnot. And so to sort of do it from that perspective, and I guess really to start off by having you to give us some information about your background and your education and some of the things that were important in terms of your earlier experiences.
Well, first I was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I think that's where it all started as far as athletics. Athletics had been a vehicle to get rid of some other things that weren't as desirable. At a young age, I started participating, and at the end of my teens, I became an orphan. And the late Howard C. Gentry, I can never say enough about him, introduced to me with the idea of going to college. I had no idea about going to college, and Howard Gentry was the type of guy, he didn't ask you to go, he told you what you were going to do. So he got me into college, and without my athletic skills, I don't know what would have happened to me. It was a vehicle to get an education.
And so you're from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and you came to Tennessee State University?
No, I went to North Carolina A&T. He was
Tell us about,
there. He was coaching there, and I was very fortunate to run into great people. All throughout my athletic career and my adulthood, I had great role models, people who directed me and motivated me and got me moving in the right direction. So I've been very fortunate. And like I say, without athletics, I played baseball and basketball there, and Coach Gentry was my baseball coach. A lot of people don't know that he coached baseball, and really his first year was my first year, and we were very fortunate. We won a championship. So
both of you went to North Carolina together.
Right, together
he as a coach.
And Mrs. Gentry was teaching physical education, and she wasn't Mrs. Gentry then. He met his wife there, so I go way back with Coach Gentry.
Well, you know, Coach, I think that you've been involved in the athletic enterprise from the point of view of a teacher as well as a participant. And let's talk about some of the earlier things that perhaps many of our viewers might not know this morning about EMartin. I think you've already indicated that your hometown is Allentown, Pennsylvania, and that you've been involved with athletics since you first met. Since then. And so let's talk about some of that early involvement.
Well, like I say, I participated in baseball and basketball at North Carolina A&T, and I had great role models. And I think the great role models today can and should be coaches. And I was very fortunate in that area. And I participated in, like I had 4 glorious years of participation in those 2 particular sports. And upon graduation, I went into the black leagues, black baseball leagues.
Black baseball,
Yeah, and I played with one of the Globetrotter teams, the Harlem Clowns.
So you remember the old so-called Negro Leagues?
That's
you were
right.
a member
I
of
remember that. We had great baseball teams at A&T, and the opportunity came for me to keep playing baseball, and I moved into it. As far as basketball, the NBA was not open to brothers at that time, so I played with one of the barnstorming exhibition teams.
Now, what was the team that you played with originally?
New York Clowns.
The New York Clowns?
In basketball, and the Philadelphia Stars in baseball.
Now, what about the Philadelphia Stars? What can you tell us in terms?
Great talent. People missed the opportunity to see some great baseball players in that league. And I played under a gentleman by the name of Oscar Charleston, who's now in the Hall of Fame. He was my manager, so learned a lot about baseball, and most of all, I learned a lot about people and life, and those things started when I ran into Gentry. Athletics have opened so many doors of knowledge to me.
And so you look at it even today as a great opportunity for young people to become involved in the athletic enterprise.
There's so many opportunities for you, and it's a great way to learn about life. You know, the game is life, and to learn that is very important.
Now, I think most people associate you, Coach Martin, with basketball, much more so than baseball.
Well, a lot of people were surprised to find out I played professional baseball. And as far as baseball, again, I coached baseball at South Carolina State for 13 years.
Before coming to Tennessee State?
Yeah, before I was coaching baseball and basketball. And I have some football coaching background, too.
And so you've been involved in all aspects,
all
three sports, baseball, football, as well as basketball, and you've had an opportunity. Well, what are some of the things that you can say in terms of the memorance that you have coming out of having dealt with all three of those sports? So what are some of the things?
Well, you learn how to win. You learn people skills. And you learn that inspiration and things like that are very important. And after I finished playing professional baseball, I started coaching in high school at Avery High School in Charleston, South Carolina. Again, I was very fortunate. I won a couple state championships in basketball, and I moved from there to South Carolina State. And again, I ran into a great person who was the athletic director, Roy D. Moore.
Okay.
And as a young coach, he nurtured me and gave me opportunity. And I continued to grow.
Now, when did you come to Nashville, Coach, and under what conditions did
1968. I was 13 years at South Carolina State, and the opportunity came to come to Nashville, and my athletic director, again, I was reunited with Coach Gentry. So I jumped at it. At that time, Tennessee State was the greatest job in the country for a black coach. And everybody would jump for joy to get an opportunity, so I jumped at it.
And you came directly as a basketball coach?
Yeah,
as
just
men's
basketball
coach.
Under Coach Gentry.
And of course, you've got many championships and many credits.
Well, I had great players. And kids like Ted McClain, who's still here in Nashville.
Let's talk about some of those players, because I think that you sent them off to the big leagues, Coach, at a time when not many were going to the big leagues.
Well, they had talent, and they were great people to coach. Ted McClain, who's probably the finest basketball player to ever come out of Nashville. Ted Hound Dog McClain, and then I had other guys like Truck Robinson out of Jacksonville, and they all had, and Lloyd and all of those, the three of them had great pro careers. So I had some great teams.
And of course, Coach, as being involved with young men at this level and sending them where you sent them, what are some of the things that you were able to impart to them, and some of the things that they might have left with you in terms of who they were?
They were good people, and one thing I'll say at Tennessee State, under the leadership of Coach Gentry, we had good people. And good people make good players, and good players make good teams. Our guys had pride, and they stood for the right things. They had goals, and they tried to achieve their goals. And it wasn't only athletics, but academics too.
Life was much more than just athletics.
Well, see, right now you have only about 1% going into the NBA. So you have to have other attributes. And when people come to see these prospects, like I say, right now I'm scouting for the NBA, you look under their clothing and find out what kind of makeup they have, what kind of persons they are.
As an NBA scout, Coach, what are some of the things that you look for? Because and we say that from this perspective, that there are so many good athletes out there today, basketball, in all sports, but especially in basketball. I mean, what are some of the things that you could tell us this morning that you look for when you're looking a candidate over, and some things that our young people who do have those aspirations, might try to...
Well, the first thing and most important thing, not only in basketball, but in life, people look at your attitude. If I can pass anything along to young people, attitude, how you react. And that's one of the first things I look at. You have all the skills in the world. If you don't have the proper attitude, you will not be coachable and you will not succeed. You can contaminate with a bad attitude.
So
nobody
it's the attitude.
Contamination. I think that's one of the greatest skills a person can bring. You have attitude, we can go to work. If you don't have attitude, we can't even start to work.
So all the skills in the world won't make up for
attitude. Same thing in any endeavor in life. I think you're looking for a job, and you go in, you're being interviewed, display a proper attitude, and you may get an opportunity. And you have to take care of yourself. You have to live the right life.
Okay, very good.
Your total carriage. When I go to scout a potential, I watch him, how he reacts to a bad call by an official.
Okay.
How he reacts to a teammate who makes a mistake. How he reacts when he's ahead, and how he reacts when he's behind.
So all of these things are part of how you see the possibilities of how that young man might fit into...
Well, you have to know how to win, you have to know how to lose. You have to be able to get along with people. You must have people skills, because you're part of a team. You're just one link, and everybody must be a contributing link to have success.
And of course, when you say that you scout for the NBA, is there a specific team that you generally work with, or is there?
I work for the league. There's a guy by the name of Marty Blake out of Atlanta.
Talk to us about how
Marty
that's done.
Blake is the director of scouting for the NBA.
Okay.
At one time, I scouted for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they wanted me to give up my job at Vanderbilt and move to Minnesota. And at this late stage in my life, I'm not ready for relocation. So I work with Marty, and we go around, and there are certain designated people that they want us to look at, and then we'll evaluate those people and send evaluation forms in.
And that is done, and now, is that for the purpose of the NBA, or is that for the purpose of the coaches?
NBA, no, NBA prospects. So when they get ready for the draft, and like in the NBA right now, you only have 2 drafts. 2 draft choices, so you cannot make any mistakes.
Okay.
And we try to eliminate the opportunity to make a mistake.
And so all of this is done really by the league in order to assist.
Each team has scouts too.
Okay.
But we enforce. Say like Miami will scout a guy, they want another opinion. We're the other opinion.
And of course, it's that information that they'll put in.
It's passed on. Marty Blake will send that to all the teams in the league.
And they'll evaluate that information.
They'll evaluate that with what they have, and then they'll draw conclusions.
Well, have you been fortunate enough to have any of the persons that you've evaluated selected?
Well, we know who the good ones are.
Okay.
And if you're a suspect, we don't get you. And every once in a while, somebody will come out of the blue. But so many have gone up. Everybody know, like the top players, like the big youngster down there at Arkansas, Ray Charles, can see he can play. So you just evaluate him, and then use your evaluation to measure whether he's going to be your first, or a second, or whatever.
Well, let's talk about it, because I think a lot of you people might not understand exactly what is meant by these draft choices.
Well, you only
Coach.
have 2.
Okay. Now, what does that mean when you say a draft choice?
You're right to negotiate with a player, and you only have 2 choices. You can pick 2, and then you have his sole rights.
So each team can pick 2 players. 2 players.
Yeah. Now, sometimes with trades and things like that, you may trade and pick up a draft choice. But initially, you can trade your choices for whatever. But you only have 2 choices. Very delicate, very sensitive, and you cannot make mistakes. Because, like I say, you only have 2 choices.
Sometimes, Coach, we hear of blue chip players, players who are paid.
Well, all the guys that are drafted are considered blue chip. And then, like, you have the first 11 will be what they call the lottery.
Okay.
And they're going to make big bucks.
These are the persons that, in reality, can make a team. Is that what we mean?
Impact players.
Impact players. And
like,
teams are willing to pay
big bucks. Like the youngster up there with Detroit, Hill, he's impact. And Shaquille and people like that, they were all impact players. Although sometimes you can make a mistake, but you don't want to make a mistake because it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Because now these are players where they pay exceptionally large salaries.
If you're in the lottery, you're going to make big bucks. And if you're a first-round choice, you're going to make big bucks. And the bucks are good for second round. Then the people who aren't selected in those first 2 can be acquired as free agents. And every team in the league can negotiate with these players for their services.
And so there's a possibility of making tremendous amounts of money for individuals in this league. Well, now, how can a team, Coach, and I think that this might be a question that our audience certainly is interested in, how can a team afford to pay $25, $30 million to a player over 7? And not only do we find this in basketball, but certainly we find it in
basketball has a salary cap.
Okay.
They have an X amount that they can use for players, and that's it.
Well, now, but now in football, there is no salary cap.
There's no salary cap. And they're working on, now baseball, that's one of the biggest problems with the strike. They do not want a salary cap. But I think to stay in business, they're going to have to get a salary cap. It'll, everybody be working in the red.
Now, what does it mean not to have a salary cap in baseball?
Well, it's wide open. You know, you can go crazy. And some of the small franchises in baseball, like small markets like Milwaukee and places like that, Montreal, they don't have the income. It'll run them out of the business.
And so only
Seattle's another one suffering right now.
Only the big teams,
the big guys, the rich stay richer. They stay richer.
And that's it. And so the idea of putting a cap on what the baseball players.
Some parity.
Okay.
It makes everything fairly even.
Give everybody an opportunity. Levels the floor.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, well, within the framework of your baseball career, and certainly you've been keeping up with baseball, what do you think in terms of this strike? I mean, who is actually benefiting from what is going on?
I think there's a lot of wrong with both. I think there's a little greed maybe with the baseball players. And I hope they get together because I think they're depriving our public of baseball. I'm a great baseball fan, and I hope they can get together. And I see President Clinton and his people are trying to get in, and I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I hope they get together on it, because I think it's the great pastime, and I think we need it. It's good for our nation.
Well, when you talk about baseball, and I think that most of us probably are not sophisticated in terms of our knowledge of baseball. Certainly it's a 9-man game and somebody's on all of the bases and you've got 3 men in the field. But it seems to me that there's much more to it.
It's a finesse game. A lot of people do not like baseball because they do not understand.
Okay.
It's a finesse game. You have to have the skills. And I think we're talking about Michael Jordan coming to Nashville, and I think the biggest thing Michael's having trouble is hitting that baseball. I think that is the toughest athletic skill to perform.
To hit the baseball.
That baseball. You know, they're turning that ball on you. They're curving and making it go this way, that way, and I think that's the big thing. A lot of guys call home and say, Mom, I'm coming home to start to throw the curveball. And I think that's the biggest thing, speaking of Michael in baseball, that Michael's having trouble with.
And you think that if he can overcome that. Now, when you had an opportunity to see him, as an NBA coach, and now what were some of your evaluations in terms of his basketball?
Best basketball player I've ever seen.
That's.
Yeah, Michael is the greatest competitor I've ever seen. Michael could do it all, and he played from one end of the court to the other. Great defender, could block shots, and then he was Mr. Excitement. Then he put people in your ballpark.
You know, Coach, I think that certainly you deal with the academics of it and understand the importance of academics and athletics. And of course, let's talk about it from that perspective, because I think that in the NBA, no, I'm sorry, the NCAA, that there's been a number of issues raised dealing with Proposition 48 and 16 and et cetera and et cetera. What are some of your thoughts in reference to that, and especially some of the ideas that perhaps in some areas the standards might be raised to such a level that it actually will, that they will actually keep some of the more deserving players?
Well, I think, as you know, you're an academic man, that I don't think you can really judge potential on exams. Minorities, and in particular blacks, do not test that well because of their backgrounds. And I hate to see them continue to raise the standards to deprive these kids of the education. But I think you must have standards.
Okay,
now,
very good.
Let's stay within some boundaries.
And so overall, in terms of the NCAA's most recent movement, I think that's Proposition 16.
Yeah, well, they're fighting. Yeah, they're fighting, and I think they moved it back for a year.
Oh, so they've decided.
They're investigating. They're not going to throw it on you right now, but there's a lot of fighting going on. And the Black Coaches Association, they're fighting like the devil. They don't want these youngsters deprived of an opportunity. And I've seen, and I've had experience with a lot of youngsters who may not have tested that well, but they had potential and they're out as successful.
Desire can often,
potential. You know, you can't judge potential. And a lot of youngsters I had, they're out doing well. And when I was at Tennessee State, they did a survey on a 10-year period, USA, and we had more graduation than anybody in the state because we put the emphasis on academics as well as athletics.
Very good.
He's a student athlete, and we held him to being a student athlete. And there are a lot of schools now, I hate to say it, they're not interested in nothing but the youngster playing basketball or football, and I call that prostitution.
You know, Coach, I think we've had an opportunity, you've had an opportunity over the years that you've been involved in athletics to meet a number of significant personalities. Certainly you worked with John Merritt as well as Coach Gentry and whatnot. Let's have you two, during these last few minutes that we have, to talk about some of those personalities from your perspective. I mean, what did they do in terms of helping you out? And
well, one of the reasons I came to Tennessee State was to make up their athletic department with the ringmaster, Howard Gentry, and then you had John Merritt and Ed Temple there. Hey, we had some glory years, and they were great to work with. And the thing that made us work so well together, we had a lot of security within the three of us. We helped each other. Like during football season, John would help me recruit basketball players, and same thing we do with Ed Temple. And Ed was very instrumental in setting up my running programs and things like that. Nobody was that big, and we worked together. And I think in an athletic department, especially departments like Tennessee State, you must work together to survive.
And of course, you've been involved in a large number of athletic departments, and you've seen all of
Well, I worked at South Carolina State and Tennessee State and Vanderbilt, and it was the same story. I've been very fortunate to run into good people to work with. That's what makes it go.
And the personalities like the Gentrys and the Merritts
and the Temples, and I've been very fortunate.
You know, Coach, I think that the death of Coach Gentry sort of will sort of give us all an opportunity to sort of reflect upon what he's been able to do.
He was a great man. He was the type of person, gave Tennessee State a lot of credibility. He was one of the most prominent athletic directors in the country. I didn't say black or white, an athletic director, and he's received that way. He was the type of guy, when he went to NCAA convention, when he got up on the floor, he had everybody's ear because they knew where he was coming from. He had credibility, and I think he gave athletics at Tennessee State credibility. And one of his great things was to get Tennessee State in the conference. And I think they're reaping the benefits of that now by getting in the OVC.
Okay.
And OVC, I think, is the greatest thing they've ever done. When I was there, when we went to Division I, we were independent, and that's like kissing your sister. You couldn't get ball games or anything. They're in a conference now. You have a schedule. See, in January and February, when I was there in Division I, we couldn't get any games.
Okay.
And OVC, I think, is a great conference, and they have a great commissioner in Dan Beebe. And I think they're reaping a lot of benefits.
And so there's been quite a benefit. As a matter of fact, it was Coach Gentry who came out of retirement.
That's right, to get him in the OVC. He was a dreamer. He had a lot of dreams.
So he had always had an ambition,
to get into that.
Get to that conference.
And got him in a conference, and I think that's where they're surviving. And there's interest. You have a league and you have a race going on, and there's a lot of interest. See, when we went Division I, in January and February, we couldn't get any games because the other teams were in conference and they were playing in a conference. And he had that dream, and it's true. And I have a lot of, I think a lot of the OVC, and they have a great commissioner in Dan Beebe.
You know, even though you continue to say that when you were in, when you were able to win Division I, that you couldn't get any games.
No, we couldn't get
But
games.
you played a tremendous number of games, and you played a tremendous schedule in order to come out.
College division, we were able to get games. Then they had realignment.
Okay.
And a lot of schools, including Tennessee State, went Division I. And that curtailed our scheduling. And see, teams, we were in the same conference, Notre Dame and all those people, they're not going to play you. You go up there, but they're not coming to you. They have too much to lose. So that's what I'm saying. Notre Dame, DePaul, and people like that as independent Marquette, they could get games, but Tennessee State,
as an independent, as they were, okay.
See, teams like A&T and Florida, they're in a conference.
Okay.
We were independent. Independent's definitely like kissing your sister.
And so, in a real sense, you were out there all alone.
All alone, and you couldn't get games, and when you got games, you're playing all away games. We played something like a schedule with 9 and 16, 9 at home and 16 on the road.
Okay.
And you go, say, Tennessee State, we played Oregon.
Okay.
We played Louisville.
In other words, just going where you could get a game.
Going where you get a game. And let's face it, Tennessee State's not going to upset Oregon at Oregon. They're not going to upset Louisville there.
Okay.
Drake and all those schools there. You're not going to win. And not saying anything, you know, shady, but it was just not going to upset them. The odds were tremendous.
But nevertheless, you were able to do quite well as an independent.
Not as well as we'd like to. See, one year we won 20 ball games as an independent Division I. We didn't go anywhere. You know, they just wouldn't give you a smile, not even a frown. We didn't even get NIT. Okay. One year, and we were in college division, and let's see, I'm trying to think. I think it was '74, James. Vanderbilt played us. Okay. And it was the year Jan Van Briedekoff was playing. They won the SEC championship. Okay. And they played us, and they beat us 68-67. But a lot of teams weren't going to go out on that limb. And when we had teams like, with the people like Ted McClain, Lloyd Neal, and Truck Robinson, Ron Dorsey, they wouldn't play us. They had too much to lose.
Very good. So in other words, you could boost your stock perhaps by beating them, but if they
and you can't blame them.
Yeah. So the possibility.
A fellow by the name of Roy Skinner was coaching at Vanderbilt, and he took a chance and brought us in. And we played probably one of the greatest games I ever played.
I remember that. I remember the game.
68-67. It was a great game, and did a lot for the city of Nashville.
Okay, very
on both sides of West End.
You know, Coach, I think that we've got about 4.5 minutes before we end this show for today. And let's give you an opportunity over the last few minutes that we have to perhaps talk around our young people today. I think that wherever you look, you find that We're dealing with what we call violence in society and dropouts and all of those other kinds of things. And with all of your years of experience involved in the athletic enterprise, what are some of the things that you can tell our young people?
Let me say this, James. I was in athletics for 34 years. Only 4 years I didn't teach. And so I'm abreast with academics and young people. And I think one of the things right now, our youngsters, we need to work on priorities.
Good.
And I'll say this, I'm a member of the 100 Black Men. And they have a task, and that's trying to help young black men in particular. And we have a situation at Ross Elementary where we've adopted a school, and we started with first grade, and we're in our 4th year with those young kids, giving them wisdom and direction. And I think that's what our young kids leave. And showing them the priorities and giving them goals that they can attain. I think all those things are very important. Our young people are not that bad. I have young people every day I teach at Vanderbilt, and they're good. And I think we have to nurture and bring out the best in those young people. And I think our young people in particular, and not only the male and the female, they all need role models and guidance. I think we need to extend ourselves and serve as positive role models for these young people. I think that's very important. A lot of our youngsters come from the one-parent household, and we need to extend ourselves as a community. You and I and other people in our community need to extend ourselves and help these young people. I think they want direction, and I think young people want discipline.
You know, I think you mentioned the 100 Black Men that you're part of. Now, give us a little information over the last couple of minutes we have in reference to that.
Well, that's one of our goals, to help steer the young black male in particular in the right direction. And we've worked that way. We have about, close to 50 members. And we've dedicated ourselves and our time and our money in this direction. Like I mentioned, our biggest task right now, we're working with Ross Elementary and have a great principal over Miss Calloway. And I can see the difference in the 4 years that we've been over there, mentally and physically with these young people.
And the young people actually respond to...
they respond. They want it. You know, one thing, it's a funny thing, everybody wants a hug. Everybody wants to feel like they're somebody. You know, we need self-esteem. You and I, we need self-esteem. And to give those kids some self-esteem and to make them feel good about themselves. I think that's essential.
Well, Coach, we've got about a minute, and let me take this opportunity to thank you for bringing all of that information to us this morning, and to allow you over the last few minutes a few seconds that we do have, to perhaps make some final comments in terms of anything that you'd like to leave us with.
Well, James, I've been in the people business all my life, and it's always great to work with young people in particular. That's my life. That's, I guess those are the things that I love. So being around people, young and old, and working with people to see them live most and serve best. How's that?
And you're still active in terms of the NBA scouting.
Yeah, I'm still scouting for the NBA.
Still scouting for the NBA, and you've got a hectic schedule in terms of trying to move from collegiate environment to collegiate environment.
No problem.
No hectic schedule at all.
No problem.
Okay.
See, I'm teaching, and then on weekends I work with the NBA.
Okay, and Coach, let me thank you for coming by and giving us that excellent information this morning. And let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. So we got